Assalamu alaikum, a prophetic reading of peace. My name is Faizan Syed, F as in Frank Aizan, last name Syed Syed, and I'm the Executive Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations here in the city of Dallas, Fort Worth, and in Austin, Texas as well. Today, we are here for this very important press conference in response to the hostage situation and the tragedy that occurred yesterday at Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas. We wanted to make crystal clear the point of the family and, of course, the opinion of all those parties who are involved to condemn the action that happened and to stand in solidarity with the Jewish community, especially those four victims who were taken hostage for almost 12 hours yesterday, and that we're very grateful that our prayers were all answered when these victims were released. Today, we're also come and we've heard the news that the identity of the man who was the hostage taker, Malik Faisal Akram, who is a British national who came to Dallas Fort Worth to commit this horrible act of violence and anti-Semitism. His identity has been released, and we hope to continue to listen to law enforcement to understand more of his motivations, more of information about this individual, and to see what else is involved there. And we're confident that law enforcement will release this information in a timely manner. Today, we have different speakers who are here to speak on behalf of the family of Dr. Afia Siddiqui, who are here to speak on behalf of Dr. Afia Siddiqui herself, along with Dr. Afia Siddiqui's attorney and others who are working on the campaign to get Dr. Afia Siddiqui released. Before I get into that, I do want to state that there was a statement that came out just before our press conference that is alleged to be from the family of Malik Faisal Akram, who wrote a response to hearing the news that their family member was involved in this violent attack. And they wrote, and I quote, "We as a family do not condone any of his actions." That they also continue by saying that Malik Faisal Akram had been suffering from serious mental health issues for many years, that they were working with law enforcement during these negotiations, and they were confident that this individual would not harm anybody, but they were sadly unable to convince him to turn himself in. The statements I'm going to read today are all available on freedraafia.org. That's freedraafia.org. And you'll be able to find the copies of these statements on that website. I'll first start off with an individual who was not able to come physically here, though he wanted to be here today. He wanted to make a statement before everybody, but due to conflicts, he was not able to come. And that's Suleiman, Dr. Suleiman, who is a community leader here in our community. And he was actually there all day yesterday near the Beth Israel synagogue. And he was working with interfaith allies and partners to stand in solidarity with one another, to pray for the release, and to do whatever we can to make sure that situation ended peacefully. Dr. Suleiman's statement reads as the following, and I quote, "Unfortunately, the attacks on places of worship, and specifically synagogues, have become all too common in the United States. From Pittsburgh to San Diego and now here in Dallas, we stand against anti-Semitic attacks that hurt the innocents in ways we can never measure. The perpetrator was not from here and certainly does not represent us or anything we stand for. He acted alone and with no noble faith or cause despite whatever claims he makes. We shouldn't give him ownership over the cause of Aafia, nor the religion of Islam, nor dignify his voice by amplifying it. He only harmed his Muslim sisters by not putting them in harm's way, and harmed his brothers and sisters in humanity by holding them in that synagogue with weapons pointed at them. Let's also remember the psychological harm caused and not discount it. We must stand collectively for justice and for a more peaceful society. That means we protect each other and our places of worship without exception." And I end my quote. Other family members of Dr. Afia Siddiqui have also come out against the violence and the incident that happened. Dr. Fawzia Siddiqui, who was actually in Pakistan, her mother collapsed several days ago, and she was actually taking care of her mother over the last few days. She put out a statement, and I quote from her, "My name is Dr. Afia Siddiqui, and I'm Dr. Afia Siddiqui's sister. My name is Dr. Fawzia Siddiqui, and I'm Dr. Afia's sister. Alhamdulillah, the hostage crisis in Texas is over." She continues by saying that Dr. Afia would also be praying for the victims and their families. Afia is one of the too many people worldwide who understand the toll that injustice demands from all of us. Let us do our part to end these cycles of pain and bloodshed. She also wanted to reiterate that her mother had collapsed a few days ago and that she's currently in the ICU on a VIPAP ventilator and on life support. And that's where Dr. Fozia, along with her brother, were preoccupied during this time. The last statement I'll read is from Dr. Afia's brother, Muhammad, who quotes, and I repeat, this assailant has nothing to do with Dr. Afia, her family, or the global campaign to get justice for Dr. Afia. We want the assailant to know that his actions are wicked and directly undermine those of us who are seeking justice for Dr. Afia. On behalf of the family and Dr. Afia, we call on you to immediately release the hostage and turn yourself in. This was made during the hostage crisis that was going on yesterday. We wanted to be very clear that this individual's actions are something to be condemned, and we find no place in it in our campaign that we're doing to pursue justice for Dr. Afia Siddiqui. My next guest is Salima Gul, and she is with the Afia Foundation, and she is going to share her thoughts about the incident that happened yesterday to everybody. So please welcome Salima.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My name is Salima Gul, that's spelled as Saleema, last name Gul. I'm with the Afia Foundation. I am their Houston representative. The Afia Foundation and the family of Dr. Afia are relieved that the crisis in Colleyville, Texas has ended with all hostages unharmed. We wish to express our solidarity with the now released hostages, as well as our sympathies to all those affected by this, the Jewish community, and the families of the hostages and their friends. The Afia Foundation is dedicated to the advancement of human rights for all through education and advocacy and through legal means. We do not condone the incident that took place yesterday or any other means to secure Dr. Afia's freedom other than through advocacy and legal means. We advocate for the emancipation of unjustly incarcerated people, including Dr. Afia. Yesterday's incident undermines our work that we have been doing for the past 13 years on behalf of Dr. Afia to secure her freedom where she's being unjustly held. The Afia Foundation demands the repatriation of Dr. Afia back to her country, Pakistan, through peaceful and legal routes only. Dr. Afia is innocent. The FBI's own forensic evidence established that she never shot at any of the soldiers, and she was never charged with any crimes of terrorism. For more information, please reach out to the Afia Foundation's founder, Brother Murray Salahan. And if you have any questions, I will try my best to answer.
Thank you so much for that, Salima. And again, just to reiterate the point, our campaign has been working to peacefully get Dr. Afia Siddiqui released using legitimate methods. The action of taking hostages, using violence, and terrorizing an entire community and using anti-Semitism is something that's never accepted by any of us or our campaign as well. Thank you, Salima, for sharing those words with everybody here. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Afia Siddiqui's attorney, Marwa El-Bailey. Marwa El-Bailey has been the attorney for Dr. Afia Siddiqui for nearly a year now, since January of 2021, and she regularly meets and engages with Dr. Afia Siddiqui as well. At this time, I'm going to bring Marwa to the stage to share her thoughts. Marwa, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Marwa El-Bailey. I'm an attorney here in Dallas, Texas. I have been meeting with Dr. Afia Siddiqui for approximately a year now. I can state unequivocally that she condemns all forms of violence. Dr. Afia Siddiqui has publicly stated during her trial at sentencing, and I quote, "I don't want any violence in my name, please." We are all thankful that the hostages were safely released and that no one was harmed. The hostage takers' actions are heinous and wrong, and we condemn them. There's a lot of misinformation surrounding the case of Dr. Afia Siddiqui. Dr. Afia Siddiqui has never harmed or physically injured another human being. Nobody has ever been injured by Dr. Afia Siddiqui. Any allegations that she's a supporter of any terrorist organization or group are false and without merit. Dr. Afia Siddiqui was never charged with terrorism. We believe that her case merits review and that there are questions that need to be asked about her whereabouts and her 3 children's whereabouts between March of 2003 and July of 2008. While Dr. Aafia is not a name known by many Americans, overseas, she is widely believed to be a victim of CIA torture and black sites. Many questions remain as to how did an American-educated Pakistani woman with a PhD in neuroscience, a mother of 3, recently separated from an abusive ex-husband, disappear for 5 years with her children? Where was she? Where were the children held? And where is her youngest child, Suleiman, who was only 6 months old at the time of the disappearance and whose current location remains unknown? We are presenting these questions through proper legal channels. It is important to reiterate again that Dr. Afia Siddiqui condemns all forms of violence, and we are grateful that our thoughts and prayers were answered and that the hostages were safely released yesterday.
Thank you, Marwa, for that statement. I'm sure, just to reiterate what you said, Dr. Afia Siddiqui does not want any action of violence to be done in her name. She has been stating that since the very beginning, and she continues to state that to this day. Dr. Afia Siddiqui, along with her entire family, are completely horrified by the incident that happened, and they were all praying for the safe return of the hostages who were there. I also want to reiterate that according to the family of the hostage taker, that there might have been mental illness involved in the individual as well, that he was suffering from mental illness, and we are sure that law enforcement will shed more light on this information in the next few days. It is important that we get as much information about this incident and what happened and the motivation involved as we move forward. It is our belief that our campaign will continue to free Dr. Afia Siddiqui, to raise educational awareness about it, and that we do not ever accept any forms of this type of action to happen in the future. At this time, we're going to conclude our formal statements that have been created, and we'll open it up for any questions that are from the media at this time. We have one question that came from Scott Friedman of NBC5, Dallas-Fort Worth. And this question is, and I quote, "My question is whether Malik Akram is someone who was known to the people in the Free Afia's group. Is he someone who had attended past protest events? Has he ever reached out to the group in any way?" I want to state clearly and unequivocally that we do not know this individual. At least from our knowledge, he has not been a part of any protest action that we are aware of. I've contacted many people who are part of this group, and nobody knows who this individual is. It seems that potentially this individual heard about this, and because of potential mental illness that he had, that he decided as an individual, according to law enforcement, to take this, really violent, heinous action that was done. That's why we felt it's so important to hold this press conference for people who get to speak to Dr. Aafia and are involved in Dr. Aafia's family, so that way we can clearly state what their family's position is, and then also clearly state what Dr. Aafia's position is as well. We want Dr. Aafia to be released through legal, legitimate methods, and we are continuing to pursue those legal, legitimate methods. The actions of Mr. Akram, and if anybody else has these ideas as well, they were wrong, and that is not the way we wish to take it from there. Thank you for that question. We have another question from Aparna Zalani, CBS, and it says, and I quote, "During the jury selection, Ms. Siddiqui said that she didn't want Jews to be on the panel, saying they were mad at her. How do you reconcile this statement with her message today?" Marwa, do you know anything about that statement?
Yes, so there is serious concerns, and with regards to Dr. Afia Siddiqui's, she went through competency evaluations for over a year prior to being put on trial. So there are statements. We condemn any anti-Semitic statements that are ever made, and there were inappropriate statements that were made at that trial.
Thank you so for that, Marwa. Just to shed some light on Dr. Aafia, from 2003 and 2008, that Marwa was saying, we believe that Dr. Aafia was kidnapped. She was separated from her children, and she was put into black sites. This had a serious emotional and mental toll on Dr. Afia Siddiqui. And then, of course, before she was renditioned to the U.S., she was shot at by U.S. soldiers and had to go through surgery, which she survived from there. It is important to understand that we, of course, condemn all of these types of statements that happen, but we have to understand the mindset that potentially Dr. Afia was in when he made a statement like that. Of course, today we want to reiterate the statement that has been said, that Dr. Afia does not want any violence to happen in her name, and she is completely against that. If there are other questions from the news media, we'll be more than happy to answer those at this time. Another question was asked, also from Ms. Zailani from CBS, that the charges against Dr. Afia Siddiqui are serious. What injustice is Ms. Siddiqui claiming? Marwa, is that something you want to maybe shed some light on?
Yes, so the main concern, and I mentioned it earlier, is the whereabouts of Dr. Afia Siddiqui between March of 2003 and July of 2008. There are a lot of allegations out there, and they remain as such. I don't have actual verification from our government as to whether they knew about her whereabouts and the whereabouts of her 3 children. As I stated earlier, her youngest son, Suleiman, remains missing. The other 2 children reappeared in unusual circumstances, to say the least, and we would like to know whether the government of the US or any federal agencies have any information as to her whereabouts. She disappeared off of the streets of Karachi, Pakistan, and reappeared 5 years later, hundreds of miles away in Ghazni, Afghanistan. She was picked up by the local police, the Afghan National Police, because she does not speak or know any of the local languages. We want to know how this came about and how she ended up in Ghazni, Afghanistan. The charges against her were serious. They did allege that she picked up a weapon. She managed somehow to disarm a United States soldier, this 90-pound woman who was emaciated and completely disheveled at the time she reappeared in Ghazni, Afghanistan, managed to disarm a United States soldier from his M4 rifle, pick it up, turn off the safety, and shoot at American soldiers and miss everybody in a tiny room and get shot multiple times. She maintains that she was behind the curtain, a yellow curtain. They did not know that she was in the room at the time, and that when they saw her, they were like, prisoner loose, and shot her multiple times.
Just to add, Marwa, what about the material evidence in the case, such as gun residue and things? Was that ever found? Could you talk about that a little bit?
There was no physical evidence. Her defense attorneys at the time of trial brought this forward. There was no fingerprints on the weapon. There was no gunshot residue on her clothing or on her person. There was no shell casings found from the M4 she allegedly fired. There was no holes in the wall or no evidence that the M4 had been fired. The only person that was hurt or injured on the day of that shooting was Dr. Afia Siddiqui. Nobody else was injured. And that's why I said, and I can say, that she has never physically harmed another human being.
Thank you, Marwa. I really appreciate this. There's another question that says, how is she doing, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, when you see her? I remember in July 30 that Dr. Afia was attacked by another inmate at FMC Colleyville. I know we've been having concern whether FMC Colleyville can even keep her safe. Could you talk a bit about that?
Dr. Afia Siddiqui's situation has improved. She was attacked by another inmate in July of 2021. Her situation has improved since then.
I'm very glad to hear that. At this point, we're going to go ahead and conclude our press conference. Any of you who are interested in learning more about Dr. Afia Siddiqui, speaking to Dr. Afia's attorney, myself, or others in the Afia Foundation, we encourage you to reach out to us one-on-one, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Again, to reiterate, the important reason that we believe this conference was essential is because we want to make it very clear that the actions of this individual do not represent Dr. Afia Siddiqui, her family, or the campaign, and we want to deter anybody who might have sympathy for Dr. Afia in her case to not take this type of action in the future. This is something that's appalling, heinous, and is against the wishes of Dr. Afia Siddiqui and her family. With that, I want to thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum, a prophetic reading of peace.